Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about emotion AI, which is artificial intelligence that can read emotional cues, nonverbal signs, tone of voice, the feeling tone of a speaker. Emotion AI, there's so many applications for this. To discuss this, I'm joined by Sylvain Tremblay, Senior Vice President of the Video AI Business Unit at Uniphore. Sylvain, thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, James. Looking forward to the conversation.
So, Emotion AI, I want to ask you about some trends and what's going on in the sector. But first, I want to stop and think, wow, Emotion AI. So that means that there could be a robot out there somewhere who can actually feel my feelings, sense what I'm thinking. It's a sort of an unusual idea. I guess I'm gonna presume that the technology is very much in its infancy because human emotions are a very complex topic. If there's a machine out there that can really understand me, I want to meet it.
Yeah, so I think you framed it well. Like if I put it in layman's terms, James, emotional AI is the ability that we have as human to read the room. Now we leverage technology to read what I call the nonverbal cue, the visual cues, the tone of your voice, and bring it all into context, leveraging other technology that basically make it contextual. So it's more human-like, but using technology to surface it.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, that's pretty fascinating. Is it safe to say that the technology is in its infancy, or is it fairly well? What would you see in terms of the growth curve? Where is it at?
If you think about emotional intelligence, and I'll play on emotional AI and emotional intelligence, think of Daniel Goleman, Travis Bradbury, Brene Brown. The concept of EQ has been around for many years.
Right.
I would say late 80s, early 90s, where people got more and more familiar with, and if I break it down, if you think of EQ, it's self-awareness, self-regulation in terms of emotion, being cognizant of your emotions and how people react and how to manage that. And then there's the social awareness and what I would call the relationship, because this entire emotional dimension, all right, is very, very present. As humans, we are a societal creature, and it's important for us to be aware of that. And now in today's world, like we are today, talking to the green dot, that emotional dimension has gone away. So that's where, like, you're correct in saying the technology is in its infancy, but it's evolving rapidly, because to process all these images and all that, it was taking enormous amount of computing power that is now purposely available. So we can do that like all simultaneously, and in today's world, even in real time.
Well, okay, it makes sense that it would be in its infancy, but also I could see it growing quickly because, as we know it, an artificial intelligence algorithm, you keep feeding it data and more data and more data, it keeps getting better. The amazing thing about an artificial intelligence deployment is it can actually get better by itself without human input. So I see, obviously, emotional AI is going to grow quite a bit in the years ahead. Here we are in the year 2022, bringing the year to a close. What are a couple of trends that are hot in emotion AI this year? What's going on in the sector?
So as you said, James, think about emotional AI. They're having three dimensions: the visual aspect, the tonal aspect. The visual aspect that is basically identified through computer vision, the tonal analysis, the tone of your voice, and then what you say, the verbal component. We've seen these types of technologies being very present. We've heard of speech recognition, NLP, natural language processing. All these technologies operated isolated in their own domains. Now we're bringing everything together, because when you read the room, you're just not listening to the room, you're reading the body language. Right now, I'm looking at you, I'm analyzing, but if you have a greater audience, you're like in the past, you'd be in a physical room, you would adjust what you say based on people's reaction in the room. But in remote and hybrid world today, what is the audience doing? Now we have technology that can do that all simultaneously, what we call multimodal, the 3-dimension simultaneously, and make it a lot more natural and more human, if that makes sense.
It does. It's really interesting. So in other words, we need the various elements of artificial intelligence. We need natural language processing. We need the algorithms. So I'm wondering, we may be too down in the weeds here, but Is it a question of like deep learning and neural networks? Is this what's fueling the whole thing?
When you go to neural networks and deep learning, I don't have implants on my body and things stuck to my face and my head. We're
Right.
basically just like humans. So what we're doing right now with the technology is I can't read your mind, but I can read the cues, the nonverbal cues, or even the verbal cues that you're saying, and leveraging technology not to replace the human, but to augment the quality of the interaction. Because I'm sure you've experienced this. You go on calls today and people go in, you do the friendly chit chat at the beginning with the mosaic of the Zoom or the WebEx or the Teams.
Right.
And then people go into presentation mode. The green dot comes on, and then you go into one-way monologue.
Right. Which is not very receptive of the other individual.
No, and how is the other individual reacting? Like you've done the 5 minute, what I call chit chat, but then somebody's confused. Somebody's going, oh my gosh, I don't need 30 slides. You had me at hello, stop selling. Right? You're losing my attention.
Right.
People, there's so many distractions in today's world that is super important. We use this technology to augment the experience of both the presenter, because when you hear about Zoom fatigue and these types of terms, for the presenter, it is, I'll speak for myself. I earned a living and I built a career on building rapport, building trust, reading the room. And all of a sudden, I'm isolated in my little room doing 10 hours of Zoom call.
Right.
There's no rapport there. And this is where the technology helps, number one, the user of the technology being more comfortable, being more aware of the room. And then from the person that's on the other side, what I would call the benefactor or the audience of this, the quality of the engagement is a lot better, because everything we do now is based on your engagement, the emotions you're projecting, your sentiment. And that's where the technology becomes really powerful. It's to improve the quality of the engagement.
So I'd love to see a kind of a sense of an example of it. Is it for sort of call centers and people answering the phone in call centers and they pick up verbal clues of people calling in? Is it for executives and sitting in front of a Zoom meeting? How does it literally work, like in actual terms? Are you reading, does the screen give you clues like, hey, say this now?
So multiple levels. In the call center, all right, where you have, it's a one-to-one conversation, and in call center, video is not very present.
Right.
So we basically use tonal analysis in the call center, and also we use NLP to analyze what people are saying, and we pick up on words, and we basically give cues to an agent on, and we have this present in very, very large call centers in the US, where you're basically helping the user of the technology, the agent. At the same time, the benefit to the person on the other side is, Monday morning, I show up at work, I'm jacked up on caffeine, I'm here. Meanwhile, the customer is here, not happy.
Right.
So we regulate, we bring everybody on the level playing field from an emotional perspective. So now we can have a conversation at the same level. We call that empathy. And empathy is the foundation of building trust. And people buy or do business with companies they trust. So that's level one, call center.
Right.
Now let's elevate the conversation. I'm in a board meeting. I'm in a sales conversation. I'm in a customer success, multi-party. Then I use the technology to read the room. And what's cool about this technology is that it has as limited bias as we can have. Because when you and I walk in a room, we've met in the hallway, we've had a little chit chat, but what about the other 8 people or 10 people that are in the conference with whom I don't have a rapport?
Right.
I'll be more in tune to look at you, interface with you, the person that monopolizes the conversation. Now the technology brings a level playing field. We look at every participant independently and what they truly care about. So now you're in a position to say, my meeting's going well, reacting well to this content, avoid this content. My key decision maker has gone to the iPhone prayer. So these are all examples of how we're using those cues to identify what people really care about.
So are the salespeople are in the meeting, they're giving their pitch. Are they receiving those cues from the AI on a screen somewhere? They covertly look to their left and it says, "Oh, don't use your voice that way." How are they actually receiving the information?
So we try to make the technology as less intrusive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You've got enough going on. Your phone's vibrating on the table. Even if you tune all the noise out,
Right.
getting distracted by, oh, do this, do that, never work, especially in the B2B environment where a strategic conversation, the technology cannot, it's really hard to predict in today's world an open conversation in a B2B environment. So
Sure.
we give subtle cues. You're losing your audience.
Are those cues delivered via text? The person has to kind of look quietly to their left and they're looking at a little screen?
Correct. They're appearing on your Zoom on the right, like depending on where you put the app, they surface, and it basically, you've been monologuing for the last 7 minutes, losing your audience.
What about a live meeting though? I guess would they bring a device into a live meeting?
So if you listen to the stats right now, even in today's new world of hybrid conversation, 88% of face-to-face meetings will still have remote participants.
Right.
So it allows you in a live meeting, like if you have a telepresence room and all that, and the call is being recorded, we can do the same. If it's non-live, obviously the technology it cannot join the conversation, then it becomes non-present.
Interesting. So, all right, let's drill down to Uniphore itself. How is Uniphore addressing the AI needs of its clients? Obviously, you've talked about that, but there's a number of companies doing emotion AI. What's the Uniphore advantage?
I'll give you two examples. So since its inception 14 years ago, Uniphore started about leveraging technology to give people access. So Uniphore started in India, where we gave access to people in rural India with different dialects to the latest digital services via voice, like speech recognition. And over the years, we augmented that. We brought automation, we bought conversational intelligence as well. So today, if you interface with some of the large cellular provider or mobile device providers in the US, our technology listens in the background. I'll give you an example to bring it real.
Okay.
Your mobile device, you drop your mobile device, you call in and you need a device now.
Sure.
Right? The agent just says, all right, James, you still live at this address? Yes. What do you want, the same type of device? Oh, the NLP has already registered your phone number, who you are. Now it'll suggest, oh, James can get a free upgrade, pops up on the screen, tells the agent where you are. And by the end of the conversation, the technology has identified who you were, your phone number, the agent confirmed your address, the technology was listening. At the end of the conversation, you get a text telling you that your new mobile device is on its way, and you get the follow-up. And the beauty of it is your experience is better, but the agent himself or herself doesn't have to fill out the forms, the survey, no human mistakes introduced, hangs up the conversation, it's done. So we're saving the provider millions of dollars in terms of wrap-up time that the rep or the agent needed in the past. Plus you get a better experience because it's expedite, no mistakes, and you get the follow-up post-conversation. One dimension. The other dimension is the one we were talking about, the sales environment. Now, when I'm in a Zoom call or a WebEx call or a Teams call, I have the ability to read the room. You and I don't know about you, but spending years, I remember having a meeting in San Jose, California with a large tire manufacturer. There's a room full of people and my account executive is in front. He comes out of the meeting and goes, wow, Sylvain, that went well. And I'm kind of going, were you in the same meeting that I was in?
You weren't too sure.
So that person couldn't even read the room being physically present. So now we're giving reps the ability to, number one, read the room and get a feel of how their audience is in real time. And number two is we surface, one problem in sales today, we've made it a game of analytics, right? All the tech stack and the technology, we tell reps, fill this, fill that, and maybe I'll give you a benefit. And everybody wants to tell you how to do your job better. What we've done is we are basically surfacing the intelligence of the conversation. What were the key moments? What messages resonated well to your audience? Where did you lose your audience? And then we're able to basically always validate from the customer's perspective, all right, what contents resonate because, and I'll tell you why this is so important. Salesforce made a publication in 2020 stating that 70% of lost opportunities are associated to miscues. So now we basically surface this intelligence. We help the rep get better. You've demonstrated empathy. So there's the reading the room in real time, surfacing the key moments, identifying what I call the promises made, because promises made, promises kept builds trust. Promises made, undelivered kills trust. So now you're always in a position, and we do that for, this is the sales environment, but think about measuring employees' engagement and sentiment in a work environment. In the terms of Great Resignation, I'm able to predict my employees' engagement and sentiment trends and now react proactively, saying, James, you might want to check in with your employees. Engagement and sentiment in the past 30 days has taken a nosedive. So this technology has application across the enterprise, not just sales, but customer success, HR. You think in terms of professional services, it's all about making the conversations more effective.
So let's look at the future of emotion AI. I think there's a couple of things that seem like they're going to play in. One is artificial intelligence takes an enormous amount of compute power. I think you mentioned this, but it's a lot of compute power to really, mine all that data to keep up with the algorithm. So I'm wondering, will the system build on its own compute power to really keep up with it all? And probably more relevant is the question of, is the algorithm getting feedback? So the algorithm reads the room and it finds out that, 10 out of 12 conversations, it thinks that the audience was pretty enthusiastic, but really only 7 of those 12, the audience really was, enthusiastic. So is the algorithm getting the feedback it needs to really grow? And is the system growing in compute power? And I guess I'm piling on questions here, excuse me. My real question is, what do you see in the years ahead, given these kind of challenges?
So in terms of technology, I think the more compute power you're going to get, all right. So some of the trends, the first one that I will tell you, first trend, the technology, we need to start building the use cases. The more more use cases built, the more you're going to get the technology adoption. Because yes, like you said, the technology learns from itself. So that's number one. But what's going to drive the adoption is the use cases. Number two, once you have the use cases, we'll need to build, because this can be pretty cool, but we will need to have causation. So what we do, and you asked me if some of the differentiator is like identifying, measuring, and quantifying the impact of emotions on business is going to be table stake for this technology to evolve. And then the third trend that I'm saying is, we've talked a lot about person-to-person conversation. But there's also a stat out there that says the average millennial out there doesn't want to talk to a vendor, would rather do self-serve and all that. So 44% of millennials don't want to interact with anybody. They want to do their business on their own. So now you're going to have emotionally aware avatars or bot. That is what I would see being the third trend in this. This technology is at our doorstep, but we will need to cover the other two steps.
This is like chat technology, but it's an intelligent chat agent.
Yes, chat technology that if you come on the call and you're angry, all right, and the technology acknowledges that, it's not going to give you like the funny tone voice. Basically, it's going to adapt its tone, regulate its engagement with you, and also escalate to a live person. When the technology sees that it's not able to address the question, you want to make sure that you have first time or first call resolution. So we're going to use the technology, like this emotional intelligence, to route the call more effectively.
Sylvain, I think you said it. It's a fascinating sector. I definitely would like to keep an eye on it in the years ahead. I think it's a growing sector. I totally appreciate you sharing your insight, and I hope you come back and talk with us again sometime.
James, thanks for having me, and hopefully that was worthwhile, and I'll be back anytime. Have a great week.